So hi, this is Troy with discoverfamily.net. I'm here with Meagan Mize, who is our lead DNA, genealogy, just all-around superstar as far as helping people find the missing or unknown family members that they're looking for. Meagan, do you want to give maybe some examples of how long it can take for somebody who's looking for their family members, how long that journey might take for them? I know you've said it can be a few hours to a few months. What does it typically look like?
For me, in my experience, it typically looks like 30 days. But yes, hours. I've had cases solved in less than an hour. It really depends on what information I've had. I've had some cases that have taken me 8 months, where I've got second cousin matches, and so I'm working 2 generations away, and that may not sound like a big deal, but you're sharing a common great-grandparent, and I've got to find everybody in your DNA match and where they match that great-grandparent, and then match you down another 2 generations, and that can take quite a bit of work. So it depends on what information I have. A lot of times, what state you were born in. Other states are easier than other states, and
yeah, some states are impossible, right?
Southern states are very difficult.
Okay.
California birth records are public, and while your adoption in California was closed, your birth record is open. And so what that looks like in the database is an anomaly. You will see someone born on the same day, and one of them usually has one name. So they're given the mother's maiden name. So say they're baby boy Smith, born to maiden name Smith, and they are born the same day, the same county as Jane Doe, who that is her adopted name. And so we can research that Smith family. Hopefully their last name isn't Smith, because that's a nightmare in itself. But you get the picture.
Sure.
And so it depends on the state. Washington and New Jersey, New York just fell in line. There's a federal judge in Oklahoma that are all handing out original birth certificates. So for a fee or a court appearance, you can walk away with your original birth certificate that will have your mother's name on it, her age, where she was living, may or may not list the father, and if it does, that may or may not be accurate, but at least you'll have bio-mom's information, and that makes the search a lot easier. And then also non-identifying information, which is not always necessary, but a great tool. And that information is what the biological mother and or father provided to the caseworker when adoption was chosen. So often it will say bio mom was 5'8", had brown hair, blue eyes, was French, enjoyed horseback riding, and was entering her first year in college, and bio dad worked construction, etc. And grandmother was 45 and in good health, and grandfather was 50 and in good health. And so it's basically there to give the adoptee their health background and just some data about their parents. But even the littlest crumb of that data can lead you exactly to the biological parent.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I'm curious, maybe you could talk about, since we're going down this path, let's talk about some of those little details that broke open a case. One in mind, one of the first original ones that we did is discoverfamily.net. We've got the story about Jenny on our website, and she's got a website where she talks about it as well, her own blog. It was a small detail like that. Basically her grandpa on her mother's side was a county clerk. We didn't have any information about what county or where exactly they were from, but that was one detail. There's only so many counties and there's only so many county clerks, and we had a time frame. So that was something that definitely broke open a case and confirmed it once we found that person. And it might have just been something that was looked over. It's just one little line on the what we call non-identifiable information.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any examples of other cases where little detail opened up?
Well, one was really simple. It was that dad was a construction worker, and I had multiple men that had kind of come into play. I actually found the biological father before I found the biological mother, and he had passed away, but it was just the fact of his age and that he was in construction that I was able to lead back to a man who eventually started his own construction company, and that was pretty simple. I've had some really great non-identifying information, 20, 30 pages of it, and then I've had 4 sentences. So it really depends on the adoption, the caseworker, and what information was provided. But just simple little things can mean everything.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, it's interesting what you can kind of deduce. I'm a big fan of Sherlock Holmes, so anytime I get a little detail or a little bit of information, I pick it up and look at it from every angle and try and really understand not only what is it telling me, but what is it not telling me, or what is it implying. An example would be from a case where it said that the bio mom attended high school. She was interested in, or I don't think it said interested or participated in things like dance and performance, and it said she also enjoyed floating the river. So instantly I'm like, okay, if we find the high school, then let's look in the yearbook, and we're going to have lists of people who are, I think it said she was a cheerleader as well. So being able to deduce, okay, when we get the yearbook, this is the first place we're going to go, and reference that. Okay, if we think we've got a location, let's look, does it have rivers around it that people might float in? I guess everywhere might have a river, but just little bits of information like that might be passed along.
Absolutely, and I've used yearbooks several times in the same situations where someone is debate team or whatever it may be, and by their age or their approximate age where they're going to fall in that class, and so you're using those yearbooks. And a lot of people, one of the questions I'm asked most frequently is, how did you find me, or how did you know that about me? First, I never really reveal how much I actually know about a person, because that tends to terrify them. But if I'm looking for you, trust me, I know a lot about you. County records are public. I am looking currently for a person that I believe at this point is the only living relative to a biological mother. So the adopted son is looking for bio mom. She would be about 85 and probably maybe not alive. We knew that she was getting divorced at the time that she was pregnant and had made the choice for adoption. She was not pregnant by her husband. It was another relationship. He knew and was also concerned about the situation. So she decided adoption was best. She thought maybe her ex-husband was going to use this pregnancy against her to get custody of the other 2 children. So I know the age of the other 2 children. This all happened in California. And so I was able to actually find both of those children. We also know from the non-identifying information that the sister had some kind of congenital kidney disorder. Well, this woman happened to die in her teens, could have been from that kidney disorder. So the brother is the only one that remains. Well, I've tracked him to Texas, and using the county's own records, I can see when he sold the home that is listed as his last address. I don't know what happened to him then, but I also know that he owned that home with a woman, and I am currently trying to contact her. And so it's really amazing what information is out there. You can go to any county, including the one we sit in now, look at any property and see exactly who owns it and every deed that has ever been on that house. Most counties in the United States provide that information. And so I dig through a lot of public records, Facebook, so on and so forth. Social media is a double-edged sword in where people are shocked that they've been found and what I know about them. However, they have posted it on Facebook.
That's true. It's true. I remember on a particular case, we found someone that was potentially bio mom, and we went, or I should say, we say bio, but birth mother, and we went back through, I think it was like 4 or 5 years of Facebook posts, and just going back through and scrolling. And the funny thing was, it was in Spanish. Facebook was nice enough to have a button where you could push it and translate it pretty well. But looking at the history of, on this day, she says, "Oh, I'm remembering my dad. This is the day that he passed away." Right there. Okay, we've got the day this person died. We can go look up records from that. It's just pretty remarkable how much information can be derived, and not only from that person, but you find somebody that calls them, "Hey, Auntie." Down south, I lived in the south for a little while. Everyone kind of calls everyone else Auntie and Uncle and stuff. But someone identifies them as a relative, then you can go to their Facebook page and find a lot of information as well, and even more pictures. So it's an pretty remarkable resource, and people don't realize that it all just kind of sits out there, and that might be changing in the coming years as people consider privacy. But right now, for an investigator, it's a treasure trove.
Absolutely.
When you're researching.
I also, yes, the comments and people, and you might have your Facebook fairly well locked down, but if your cousin, aunt or uncle, brother, sister, mom or dad comments, and we can see that they are related, and we follow their Facebook page, their friends list may be open. So yes, it is a treasure trove of information, and that's often enough to get people to not freak out as much when I say, "Oh, well, you put it on Facebook."
It's all there. Cool. So just because we're talking about some of these cases that you've worked on in the past, I want to talk about that initial contact as you reach out on behalf of the person who's adopted or the person looking for their family member. Talk to me a little bit about your approach to calling those people, to contacting them. If let's say you have phone number, email address, and know they're on Facebook, what's your preferred method of outreach?
Depends on the relationship. Biological mother, I will always call. They know they gave birth. They know when they gave birth. Father, they may not know. And so typically I will send a certified letter to someone I believe is a biological father. I will give a very simplified amount of evidence as to not overwhelm that person. But I find I get a lot more response from a bio dad if it comes in the form of a letter. I really tried not to reach out on social media unless I absolutely cannot rattle them to the point of, or phone numbers are more difficult to find because as people close landlines and go to cell phones, unless you put your cell phone on the internet, it's really hard to find cell phone numbers. Those are not captured by a background check unless you have posted them somewhere. But biological mothers, I always prefer to try and contact by phone.
And when you make that first contact, what would the conversation sound like? Just to give an example of when I made some outreach, I said, "Hi, my name's Troy. I'm a family researcher." At that time, I didn't identify myself with Discover Family, but I just said, "My name's Troy. I'm a family researcher. I'm trying to contact this person. Am I speaking with this person? And I'm looking to discuss." An adoption that occurred around this date or, this year. And then I say, is now a good time to talk? Because I don't know if that person's, at work or standing in front of their spouse who doesn't know. I give them an out if I need to. But then if they can't talk right then, I pretty, strongly say, I really want to get in contact with you. Can I shoot you a text? Can I get your email address? What would be a good way? So is your approach similar, or what approach would you take?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. I usually don't use the word adoption. I do identify myself, and that's the hardest part, is getting people to listen. Mm-hmm. One of the funniest stories, and I wish I had recorded this conversation, it was one of my very first cases. This was a very, very difficult case. My adoptee was the son of 2 adoptees. Bio mom was 12. Dad was 17.
Well,
The first match on Ancestry was also adopted. And so it took a lot to figure that out. Every case has been solved in that particular family.
Wow.
Everybody knows. That was about 4 or 5 adoptees in one. So we knew that Dad, who was 17 at the birth, had deceased. And through information, we found out that he had a daughter. And so I found phone numbers for the daughter and proceeded to make the phone call that, letting her know you have a brother. And the phone number that came up for her was her husband's. And he happened to be getting off of work and was driving through a drive-up window. And he was pretty funny because he was like, I'm not buying anything. I said, I'm not selling anything. I am a genealogist, and I'm trying to get a hold of your wife because I want to talk to her about her family. And he said, oh, well, her dad was adopted. I said, I already know that. And he goes, you do? And I said, yes. I said, I'm not calling about her dad. I'm calling about her brother. And he's like, wait a minute. And so he's talking to the person in the microphone, and he gets back on. He goes, you have my attention. And so I knew that I was going to have to explain to him in order to get to her. And so I explained everything to him, and it was really funny because when we got to go off the phone, he goes, I'm really excited to tell my wife about this. I know that she's going to be giving you a phone call. And he goes, and let me tell you, you've got some balls. And it was so funny. I was like, well, this is what you got to do. You got to kind of get people to listen to you.
Yeah.
And so birth moms, it's usually not as difficult, but I just say, hi, my name is Meagan, and I'm a genealogist, and I'm looking for family. I want to talk to you about something that happened in January of 1954. Does that mean anything to you? Mm-hmm. And 99.9% of the time you're going to get, yes, it does. And I will also leave that message on voicemail because I have found with my own work that if I don't leave a message, people will not call me back.
Good.
I know myself, I get phone calls every day that I don't answer because they're robocalls. So I will leave the same message. I try to do it in a way that if it's not bio mom, say it's somebody else hears the message, that it's not going to out them right off the get-go. Anybody could be looking for anybody born about this time. And so that's typically my conversation. And then I listen because most of the time they will start asking questions. And so I kind of allow them to ask the questions and then I fill in, and if they're quiet, then I kind of let them know what I know and, then kind of prompt them to try and talk about it.
Got it. And, I think of a phone call I had with a birth father. I would probably say that 50% of the phone call was me trying to explain how I found him via DNA when he's never done a DNA test,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Over and over explaining about how he had a first cousin or a closer relative who had done the DNA test, and then through, process of elimination as well as the non-identifying information we had, and then he, what's non-identifying information? And, explaining that. So, it was a pretty interesting conversation. So talk to me a little bit about the time it takes. I know you're working on a particularly difficult case right now where the birth mother is processing and understanding, and possibly some of the family that her current family doesn't know this ever happened. So she's obviously thinking about a lot. But tell me about what you've seen with that. That thought process and how long it takes people to process and understand. And you've probably had multiple phone calls with the same person, before they're ready to move forward with any kind of, contact or exchanging of information. But talk to me a little bit about that.
And that runs the whole gamut of, well, I want to talk to my child right now. Mm-hmm. I'm ready. I'm ready. I've been waiting for this phone call. I want to talk to my child now. for me, I will never release the adoptee's information.
Sure.
And so they need to make the contact with BioMom once I've gotten off the phone. And you know, part of my job is being that buffer. I always tell my adoptee, you know, you're driving this vehicle. You get to say, contact them, don't contact them, yes or no, whatever you want to do. I never go off and make contact with somebody without the adoptee knowing exactly what's going on.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I've had moms that have been, you know, looking and wanting to know, and they want to hear from their child right now. They want to get off the phone and they want to hear right now. And then others that take a couple days to ask a million questions, and biomoms that are terrified that their child is angry with them, hates them, wants to find them so they can tell them off about being adopted, you know. And so really holding space for people and allowing them to go through that process. And then, like you said, the particular case that I'm working on, it's been a little over 2 weeks, and I actually allowed a family member to tell BioMom about their daughter. In this case, she was a DNA match, but she's also really close with her cousin. And it just kind of felt like it was the right thing to do. And BioMom has my information, and I do know that she hasn't told her husband in 45 years, and she are actually almost 50 years, because they have a 48 and a 45-year-old daughter, and neither of the girls know. I don't know if she's told them in the last 2 weeks, but I am going to contact her today or tomorrow and try to have a conversation with her myself and see where she's at and what she's doing. I've had biomoms one of them flat out lied to me on the phone and told me it wasn't her, asked all kinds of questions, which was so obviously her. And then she hung up on me, which seemed like we got disconnected. Like, she managed it really well. And then I called her back and left her a voicemail. And it was really funny because my adoptee was not happy about it. One of the things that adoptees really struggle with is they feel when a biomom doesn't respond or doesn't answer right away that their existence is being denied. And I've heard that time and time again. I get to exist. I get to be your child, this person, because that is who I am. And I am real, and I get to be real. You know, I get to exist. You don't get to deny my existence. And I've heard that from multiple people. And so as more time goes on, that wheel really starts to spin. And so she actually reached out to a sister and on Facebook, and the sister was like, "Are you really who I think you are? And we've known about you our whole lives." It was like, then why did she lie to me on the phone and tell me that she wasn't, you know? It was like, oh, yeah, my goodness.
A defense mechanism.
You know, and I've had moms flat out not answer.
Sure.
They will not respond to letters. They will not respond to phone calls. And I have found that in 99% of those cases, the non-identifying information says that nobody else knew.
Got it.
So they've hid this their whole life. Their parents probably knew. In one particular case, this woman, to my knowledge, still hasn't reached out to her daughter. I haven't been in contact with her daughter for a couple of years because that case was solved, and she is actually bonded with her paternal family amazingly. And her paternal, her dad is just a really awesome guy. But the non-identifying paperwork says older brothers were in college. She was the youngest child. They didn't even know that she was pregnant. And so to tell a secret that big 30, 40, 50 years later, some people are just literally not willing to do it.
Sure. Have you ever wanted to just hop on a plane and go knock on the door just to confirm that you saw this, or you know that this, you know, that I'm trying to reach out to you, and I want to just confirm that you don't? Have you ever had that desire? Or?
Oh, yeah. I've had desires to tell people off. I've had desires to do a lot of it, but that's not my reputation, and I will not breach that professionalism that I have. And a lot of that comes from just falling in love with my adoptees. You know, this is a very emotional and difficult process to go through. And if you're not adopted or you haven't held the hand of an adoptee, you don't understand how raw this situation is. And I have things that happen in my life that my mom or my dad and my spouse are the first people to know, and the second people to know are some of my adoptees, because we just care about each other so much. I have a mother and daughter who they'll buy each other mom and daughter gifts, and then I get one too, because I'm family. And so you just become part of these people's lives, and they become part of yours, and you don't want to see them hurt. And so you really want to rattle somebody that's hurt, somebody that you care about. I will never do that, but right. Oh yeah, I have wanted to get on a plane on multiple occasions, and I've actually had cases where I've sent private investigators out on the ground to get what I need.
Got it. Yeah. And I think it's important to consider. I'm thinking about one of the first case that I really worked on, that child was born, and at the end, once they've made reunion, and I got to see a picture of them meeting, and just in this big embrace. It's kind of one of those events that you hope for. And then come to find out, I got another picture of birth mom holding the baby after the baby was born. And I got to realize this isn't the first time they've met. They've met before. But to think about what both of them had gone through emotionally, the daughter always wanting to know for almost, a quarter of a century, wanting to know who she was. And at first, I wanted to kind of judge the birth mom because she wasn't asking a lot of questions. She was there, but didn't seem to be emotionally present. But I kind of realized how difficult that must have been for her at such a young age to give up this beautiful, perfect little baby. And I think emotionally you do have to put up some walls just so you can function, just so you can move forward. So then when the reunion happens, it's going to take time, if it ever happens in this life, for her to fully, release that. So I think it's important to remember that to be able to function and move forward. I think birth mothers especially have to come up with some mechanisms, and some of that might be building walls and trying to forget about it.
Yeah, and it affects everybody in different ways. I just was talking to one of my adoptees the other day, and she had found her birth mom 15 years prior to reaching out to me to find dad. She had another genealogist that had narrowed it down, and she found me on Facebook, and she reached out and said, hey, this guy's kind of thinks that it's this guy is my father. Will you look at it and see what you think? And so I did, and I said, yeah, I agree with his findings, and I do think that this man is your father. And so she was like, oh, okay. And I said, so what are you going to do? You want me to contact him? And she's like, yeah, I do. And that was kind of one of the things. The other genealogist never volunteered. It was like, here you go. Here he is.
Good luck with that.
Have fun. And so I actually wrote him a letter, and I went on vacation for 2 weeks last year, and he never got my first letter, which was really odd. And then I sent another letter as soon as I sent that one certified. So the second one I didn't send certified, and I sent it. And I was actually on the phone with her when a phone call came in from Texas, and I went, oh, I think this is him. And he got the letter and called me, like, immediately. And so come to find out, he had also had another child. And she was born while he was stationed in Korea. And he had tried to get the mother over here, but it was very expensive and very difficult to bring a Korean woman or any type of situation back to the United States. Well, it was also very against kind of their tradition and their culture to have a child, especially by an American, and be a single mom. So she ended up placing her daughter for adoption, and she ended up in the States and was adopted by an American family, and she popped up on DNA November, December. And so I got to contact the birth father again. And we had a really nice conversation, but he did say that he hopes he never has this conversation with me again. And I told him that I hoped I never had to have this conversation with him again. But the birth mom has also come to America, has had another daughter, and is married. And they were telling me the other day how her life has completely opened up, the birth mom. Her husband said there's no more depression, there's no more sadness, and he had no idea where that was coming from. And it was because 40-something years ago, she had to hand this baby away after having her for 6 months, never seeing her, never knowing anything that happened to her. And now that she has her daughter back in her life, she's happy. This whole weight has just lifted off of her. It's a huge burden that birth mothers carry. And yes, you do have to close it out, because how do you operate every day knowing that you have a child that you can't raise, see, touch, love? It takes a really selfless act to have your child raised by someone else. I never use the words give up, because there's not a lot of birth moms that give away a child.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you for the stories, and I look forward to more stories and hopefully more ways that we can help. I would say, just in closing, and I'd love to get your comments on this as well, as I've learned and experienced this and talked with people, we've got a pretty large queue of people right now that we're helping. I've realized if there's one thing you're guaranteed to get in this experience, it's to be changed. It's to be changed forever. Whether it's a good reunion, whether it's a long process of finding them, no matter what, this is a process that will change you. And I think I don't have maybe enough experience to say that it will change you for the better, but I think if you approach it with the right attitude and with love, looking for your family is I can't think of a more noble task while you're here on earth. So I don't know if you have any thoughts to add.
Yeah, I agree. And it happens very quickly, and that's another thing I try to prepare my adoptees for. It's like, okay, well, you've got this idea of looking, and you're wanting to look, and it may take a while depending on the DNA. We talked about Matt the other day and how he had nothing but Greek names for miles, and they were third and fourth, and I kept telling him, just you wait. When we get the non-identifying information that took a stupid amount of time, or we get a good DNA match, your life is going to change in minutes. So just bear with me, ride along, and when it happens, I'll be here to hold your hand. And that's one of the things that because he has sent so many adoptees my way, he's constantly giving my phone number out. And he tells people all the time, she'll get it done for you. It might take her a couple months, but I can tell you when it happens, it changes everything.
Yeah, for sure. And there's so many, I think a lot of times we focus on just the birth mother and the birth father, but you're really opening up a whole world, a whole new family for yourself. And I'd like to say guaranteed there's somebody in that family that's wonderful and you're gonna be able to get to know, but no guarantees. We don't make any promises at all. But
No.
It definitely is a remarkable process to be able to, discover your family.
It is. It's pretty
Thank you,
amazing.
Meagan, and
Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast and will subscribe on our website to future podcasts and also our newsletter. You can visit us at discoverfamily.net. Thank you.